Hello, fellow explorers. Welcome to Quantum Beyond. I'm your AI host, Amara Isakawa. Today, we're thrilled to welcome a special guest presenter who will be deploying the power of AI to untangle a cold case that has left crime experts stumped for over a century. So, sit back, relax, grab a coffee, and buckle up for a journey into the past. And hey, don't forget to keep a teddy bear handy, because when we dive into the world of Jack the Ripper, even the bravest might need something to cuddle.
One name stands out in the darkened alleys of crime history, casting a long, chilling shadow: Jack the Ripper. This notorious figure, infamous for a series of grisly murders that shook the Whitechapel district of London in 1888, remains a mystery until today. Despite countless investigations and theories, his identity remains concealed in the foggy mists of time. Today we delve into this haunting tale, piecing together a profile of this elusive phantom from the fragments of evidence left behind. As we journey through this labyrinth of clues, we will spotlight the suspect our advanced AI deems the most likely perpetrator. So brace yourselves as we embark on this chilling exploration into the heart of one of history's most infamous unsolved mysteries. Jack the Ripper is believed to have committed 5 murders, known as the Canonical Five, between August and November 1888. The victims were all women, primarily prostitutes, and were brutally mutilated. The precision and brutality of the attacks suggest a person with knowledge of human anatomy, possibly hinting at a medical background. Some experts have also speculated that the murders likely took at least 15 to 30 minutes each, given the complexity of the mutilations and the precision with which they were carried out. The victims were Mary Ann Nichols. Her body was discovered at about 3:40 a.m. on Friday, August 31st, 1888, in Bucks Row, Whitechapel. Annie Chapman. Her body was discovered at about 6 a.m. on Saturday, September 8, 1888, in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, Spitalfields. Elizabeth Stride. Her body was discovered at about 1 a.m. on Sunday, September 30th, 1888, in Dutfield's Yard, off Burner Street, Whitechapel. Catherine Eddowes. Her body was discovered at about 1:45 a.m. on Sunday, September 30th, 1888, in Mitre Square in the City of London. Mary Jane Kelly. Her body was discovered at about 10:45 a.m. on Friday, November 9th, 1888, in her room at 13 Miller's Court, off Dorset Street, Spitalfields. The From Hell Letter. In the chilling saga of Jack the Ripper, one piece of evidence stands out and sends shivers down the spine: the From Hell Letter. This chilling correspondence, delivered to George Lusk, the head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, on a cold October day in 1888, stands apart from the rest. Its distinct handwriting and unique style set it apart from the flurry of hoax letters that flooded in during the Reign of Terror. The letter's grim contents, a human kidney preserved in ethanol or spirits of wine, paints a horrifying picture. With a morbid sense of pride, the sender claimed to have extracted it from one of the victims and, in a grotesque twist, boasted of having fried and ate the missing half. This kidney, confirmed as human by Dr. Thomas Openshaw of the London Hospital, was allegedly taken from Catherine Eddowes, the 4th victim of the Ripper, who was found with one kidney missing. When the letter arrived, the details about Eddowes' missing kidney were not public knowledge. Procuring and preserving a human organ, as demonstrated in the From Hell Letter, would have been a complex and costly task. This act suggests a certain level of financial means and a degree of anatomical or surgical knowledge. Could the individual behind this act have a background in medicine or surgery? The ability to successfully extract and preserve a kidney, along with the understanding of its significance in relation to the victim's injuries, indicates a familiarity with human anatomy that surpasses the knowledge of an average person. This expertise could potentially point toward a professional in a medical field, such as a practicing doctor or surgeon. These individuals would have the necessary knowledge of anatomical structures and access to the tools and preservatives required for such a task. However, a puzzling contradiction arises. The high cost and knowledge required to preserve and mail a human kidney seems at odds with the letter's content, riddled with spelling mistakes and grammatical errors, and the handwriting that appears rushed and crude. Could this be a deliberate attempt to mislead, to portray a less educated individual? In red ink, the letter reads, From hell, Mr. Lusk. Sir, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. Preserved it for you together. Piece I fried and ate. It was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife that took it out, if you only wait a while longer. Signed, Catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk. Profiling Jack the Ripper. Based on the evidence, we can speculate the following. 1. Possibly educated. The ability to write and send letters suggests a certain level of literacy and education. This was not common among the poor in the 19th century, indicating that Jack the Ripper was not from the lower classes. 2. Arrogant. Sending mocking letters to the police also suggests a superiority complex and a high level of arrogance. 3. Possibly affluent. The act of sending letters also suggests that the person had the means to afford postage, which was a luxury for many in those times. This further supports the theory that Jack the Ripper was not a poor individual. 4. The surgical skills required. The nature of the mutilations suggested that the killer had a profound knowledge of human anatomy. The precision with which the internal organs were removed from at least 3 of the victims led to theories that the killer could have been a surgeon, a butcher, or someone with medical training. This level of skill would not be common in the general population, narrowing down the pool of potential suspects. 5. Previous experience. The precision and brutality of the murders suggest that Jack the Ripper was not a novice killer. The canonical 5 victims were all killed with a level of skill and confidence that suggests previous experience with violence or murder. This could mean that Jack the Ripper had committed other murders before the canonical 5 that were never linked to him. It's also possible that he had a background in a profession that involved dealing with death or violence, such as a butcher, a soldier, or a surgeon, which could explain his apparent skill and lack of hesitation. 6. Local resident. The killer's ability to evade capture also suggests high intelligence and cunning. The fact that the murders were committed late at night and in secluded areas indicates a familiarity with the Whitechapel district and its routines, suggesting that the killer was a local resident. 7. Hatred for women. The brutality of the murders, specifically the abdominal mutilations and removal of organs, could indicate a deep-seated hatred for women, possibly stemming from personal trauma or psychological disorder. This level of violence could also suggest a person who was single or had a troubled personal life, as maintaining a stable relationship would be difficult with such tendencies. The sexual nature of the crimes and the choice of victims, all prostitutes, could suggest a deep-seated misogyny or a history of problems with women. This is a common trait among many serial killers. 8. Family ties and the blood factor. Considering the gruesome nature of the murders, it's plausible that the killer would have been covered in blood after committing the crimes. This suggests that the killer would need a private and secure place to clean up without arousing suspicion. Therefore, it's likely that the killer lived alone or had a space where they could return unnoticed. This factor could potentially rule out suspects who lived with families or had shared accommodations. 9. Free weekends required. The murders invariably transpired in the early morning hours, predominantly on weekends. This pattern offers intriguing insights into the killer's life. It might infer that the perpetrator was employed in a regular weekday job, possibly hinting at a social status above the lower classes. Moreover, his unhindered mobility during these early hours might denote an occupation with flexible hours or an adeptness at avoiding unwanted attention. The concentration of crimes on weekends could indicate that the killer enjoyed significant liberty during this period, potentially pointing towards a single lifestyle, as a family man might be expected to share this time with his loved ones. The meticulous consistency in the timing of these horrifying deeds underscores a level of planning and premeditation, reinforcing the idea that the killer was not only intelligent, but also disturbingly cunning. 10. Additional considerations. The killer's apparent ability to blend into society without arousing suspicion suggests a level of social adeptness. This aligns with the theory that many serial killers can be charming and manipulative, using these traits to avoid detection. In addition, the abrupt cessation of the 71-day murder spree remains a peculiar characteristic of the case. One hypothesis postulates that the perpetrator might have relocated or even fled the country, been institutionalized or detained for a different crime, or possibly met an untimely end. This conjecture adds another dimension to the consideration of the killer's profile. Brutal serial killers often exhibit a range of shared characteristics. They are usually males between 25 and 35 who struggle to establish and maintain relationships, particularly with women. A history of childhood abuse or trauma is common, often manifesting as antisocial behavior from a young age. Many serial killers infuse their heinous acts with a sexual component, extracting pleasure from the dominance and control they exert over their victims, which could be connected to sexual dysfunction or a need to assert control due to feelings of inadequacy or rejection. The high degree of intelligence and craftiness exhibited by many serial killers facilitates their manipulation of others and aids in evading capture. They may possess a charming and charismatic demeanor, which they skillfully exploit to gain their victims' trust. In the case of Jack the Ripper, all victims were prostitutes, indicating a potential sexual motive. From an exhaustive list of over 100 suspects, our state-of-the-art AI systems have meticulously analyzed the data, utilizing advanced profiling techniques to pinpoint the most probable culprit. Introducing Francis Tumblety, born in Ireland. In 1833, Francis Tumblety was an American who amassed wealth through dubious medical practices. His eccentric behavior and frequent brushes with the law made him a figure of notoriety. His presence in London during the gruesome Jack the Ripper murders in 1888, along with his subsequent arrest on unrelated charges, drew the attention of the authorities. However, due to the lack of concrete evidence, he was never formally charged with the murders and was eventually released. Here's why Francis Tumblety fits the profile. A doctor or trained surgeon, the mutilations inflicted upon the victims of Jack the Ripper suggest a significant degree of anatomical knowledge and surgical skill. The individual responsible demonstrated a deep understanding of human anatomy and practical surgical experience. The execution of a characteristic Y incision, a technique typically used during autopsies, was a notable feature of the murders. Moreover, the ability to locate and surgically remove a diseased kidney from one of the victims mirrored the precision and methodology of a trained surgeon. These complex procedures were impressively performed in total darkness, all within a remarkably brief span of just 15 minutes. The mutilation of victims. The victims of Jack the Ripper were mutilated in a way that suggested a certain level of anatomical knowledge or skill. Removal of uteruses. Some victims had their uteruses removed, a disturbing detail that aligns with Tumblety's peculiar collection of uteruses. Disdain for women. Tumblety's overt contempt for women, especially prostitutes, intensified the suspicion surrounding him. Arrest for gross indecency. Tumblety was arrested in London on November 7, 1888, and charged with acts of gross indecency, identity forgery, and escape from England. While awaiting trial for acts of gross indecency, Tumblety swiftly fled from England to France on November 20th under the forged alias of Frank Townsend. He returned to the United States just 4 days later. The last Ripper murder occurred on Friday, November 9, 1888. The abrupt end of the murders. The sudden halt of the Ripper murders could potentially be attributed to Tumblety's departure from England. After his departure, no further murders fitting the Ripper's modus operandi were reported. Alignment with serial killer profile. Tumblety's profile shares several characteristics common among brutal serial killers. His eccentric behavior, legal troubles, and explicit aversion towards women, particularly prostitutes, align with the profile. His collection of uteruses could be seen as a manifestation of the sexual component often present in the actions of serial killers. Additional speculation. Tumblety was known to have a collection of surgical knives, which could potentially link him to the Ripper's crimes. Moreover, his name was mentioned in several police memoranda, indicating that he was indeed under suspicion. In summarizing the infamous figure known as Jack the Ripper, it's undeniable that the most compelling evidence lies in the gruesome nature of the murders themselves, especially the removal of internal organs. The precision and methods used, like taking out a diseased kidney, point to someone with surgical training. What's even more mind-blowing is that these complex operations were done in total darkness, all within just 15 minutes. This suggests someone with a deep understanding of human anatomy who could perform precise surgical procedures outside, in the dark, and still manage to avoid getting caught. Imagine the pressure of doing all this, knowing that getting caught would mean certain death. This shows a level of stress tolerance way above average, and someone with a masterful control over his body. And let's not forget, he could avoid capture by the police and stay hidden, which hints at a high level of intelligence. Hence, from the suspect list, Francis TUMBLETY was the suspect that stood out. So who do you think did it?
Thank you for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, so please leave a comment below. Join our community of curious minds and future explorers by subscribing, liking, and sharing our videos. Together, we'll uncover the hidden gems of the universe and beyond. Until next time, fellow explorers, remember that there's always more to discover in the quantum beyond.